Okay, just started. So let me present now. Can you see the screen now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we were discussing regarding synchronous generator in our previous class. And we have also done it. Synchronous generator cylindrical prototype. We have drawn the phasor diagram, then obtained equivalent circuit. From there, we have developed active and reactive power equation and have discussed how to control active and reactive power. Why it was necessary? Because for control of frequency, it is necessary to control the active power generation, and for control of voltage, reactive power generation has to be controlled. So what we have seen, that active power control is possible by changing the turbine input, that is by opening or varying the opening of the steam valve, and reactive power variation is possible by actually changing the field current of the generator, DC field current of the generator. Okay. Also, we have discussed what is the limit of under excitation, how much we can reduce the field current, that we have seen, and what is the maximum permissible limit of over excitation, that also we have discussed. And now we are in a position to discuss the synchronous motor, because synchronous motor again can take part in particularly in voltage control. It can take part, so that we should see, we should discuss that. But before we do that, let us discuss some more thing regarding the operation of synchronous generator, uh, regarding the voltage control of synchronous generator. Okay, you have seen that field current can be controlled. Field current may be controlled for controlling the reactive power generation, and an overexcited synchronous generator delivers reactive power. An underexcited synchronous generator receives reactive power from the system. Okay. Okay. Sometimes during operation of synchronous generator, during the operation of generators in power system, the generators are to be overexcited sometimes. They are to be underexcited sometimes. Now, can you tell me when a synchronous generator or generators in power system are to be overexcited in general, and when they are to be underexcited? Because these things are done and these things are possible by controlling the field current of the generator. You can control the active power generation. That means you can supply more reactive power, you can supply less reactive power. Similarly, you can consume reactive power sometime, and how much you want to control consume, that also is controllable. So obviously there are times when synchronous generator is delivering reactive power to the power system, but some other times obviously it is accepting reactive power, it is consuming reactive power from the system because it becomes necessary for the operation of power system. Now my question to you is, when a generator has to be overexcited and when a generator has to be underexcited. Okay. Do you have any idea or can you think something regarding that? When it will be required? Anybody? Bolo. A generator has to be overexcited means the generator should deliver reactive power to the system. A generator has to be underexcited means the generator has to consume reactive power from the system. Now, when the generator should deliver reactive power, when the generator should consume reactive power. Any idea about that? Well, anybody? What is your thinking about that? Some of one, some of you must say this. Must have some idea. Must have some guess at least. Because in power system there is variation of load always. Have you came across load curve? What is called load curve in second year classes? Perhaps you have studied this. What is load curve? Do you know what is load curve? Can you hear me? What is load curve?
Sir, variation of load with respect to time.
Okay. So, what is the shape of the load curve? What you have seen? Is it a flat curve? That means almost a straight line throughout the 24 hours, or
Oh, sir,
sometimes
it varies. There are
No,
peaks
sir.
and there is highs and lows.
the highs and lows. When there are highs, means there are more load connected to the power system. So these loads are connected. Obviously, they are absorbing active power. At the same time, they are absorbing reactive power, because only a few load will be of unity power factor. Okay, so loads will be generally inductive in nature, so they will require reactive power supply from the system. So they will draw reactive power, and who will supply this reactive power? Obviously, the generator. That means the generator, they are the primary sources. Okay, there are other sources, but they are the primary sources. So they will be supplying reactive power. So obviously, you can say that, or you can guess that when the load on the system is high, when there is a heavy demand of power from the customers, from the consumers, then obviously the generators should supply active power, and if possible, they should supply reactive power as well, because somebody has to supply reactive power, and generator will be consuming that reactive power. Now, can you tell me, except generators, what are the other sources of reactive power? Who can supply reactive power in the power system? Except generators, synchronous generators, what are the other sources there? Already in
Bank of capacitor.
Capacitor, but
Synchronous motor in over excited synchronous motor is called sometime.
okay, bank of capacitor, you are talking about motor we shall see. Okay, motor means basically in the synchronous motor. That means besides this bank of capacitor, because sometimes these capacitors bank may be installed in the power system, sometimes they may not be installed. Okay, so besides the generators, are there and capacitor banks, are there any other sources? Any other source or any other source? Do you know any other source? Always present in power system. This source is always present in power system. Do you know this source? And you have studied regarding those source in the last semester. Okay, and in the first semester, third year, first semester classes, yes, already you have studied this. Can you not remember anything regarding the components of power system who are actually supplying reactive power as well?
Shunt capacitance.
Shunt. Because transmission line inductance, they will consume reactive power, obviously, because they are inductive. Series impedance, they are inductive, resistance is there will be power loss, and in the series inductive reactance, there will be consumption of reactive power. But at the same time, there are line capacitances. There are line capacitance from conductor to conductor, between, that means between two phases, and also from conductor to ground. Okay, line to ground capacitance. We generally represent these total capacitance of transmission line as a per phase capacitance to neutral. Per phase capacitance to neutral, that includes both line to line capacitance and line to ground capacitance. Okay, in combination, we are representing them as line to neutral capacitance. What are the function of these capacitances? They will be drawing charging current from the system. Voltage supply is sinusoidal, it is alternating in nature, because power system is AC. Since the power system is AC, there will be voltage variation in the positive half cycle and also in the negative half cycle. So if we assume that during positive half cycle, these capacitors, that means the line capacitor, shunt capacitances, they are charged in the positive voltage. Obviously, when the supply voltage changes, supply voltage goes to the negative half, then those capacitors, they are first discharged and then charged in the negative voltage. So this is happening continuously in power system. That means there is a continuous flow of charging current from the system, or that means from the generator to the transmission line. Okay, this charging current, obviously capacitors, they are taking some current. So what power they will be absorbing? They will not be absorbing active power because there is no resistance. So they will be absorbing some reactive power. What reactive power? Obviously, it is negative reactive power. That means if the series inductors, that means series reactance, we say that they are consuming reactive power. Obviously, you can say that shunt capacitors, they will be generating reactive power. All right, they will be generating reactive power. So the shunt capacitors are always generating reactive power during the 24 hours operation. Whenever the conductors are charged, when the system is charged by applying the voltage, then these shunt capacitors, they will be taking charging current. Actually, current is charging as well as discharging. We generally call this current to be charging current. Okay, so this current will be drawn, and this current obviously will be resulting in the generation of reactive power by the transmission line. So transmission line obviously is a source of reactive power. This source of reactive power will be delivering reactive power to the system. During heavy load condition, this reactive power is helping you to maintain the normal system voltage. Okay, they are supplying some reactive power, and additional reactive power, what is required, is being supplied by the generator. If some additional is required, then maybe there are installed capacitors, maybe there are some of the capacitors are fixed capacitors, some of the capacitors are switch capacitors. There are other sources as well, like are compensators, STATCOM. These devices are there, but these devices you have to install. But transmission line is there, transmission lines are there from the very beginning. So they will be delivering reactive power when the load is heavy. At the same time, when the load is low on the transmission line, on the power system. So when the heavy demand is there, the transmission line capacitors, they will be supporting the system in maintaining the system voltage. Okay, but when the load is low, what will happen? What will be the effect of this reactive power injection? During night time, load is very low. So at that time, there is no demand of reactive power or active power. That means the demand is very low. Okay, so if this is the situation, what will be happening? Transmission lines, since they are energized, they will be continuously supplying reactive power. So you can say that there is excessive reactive power supply to the system. That reactive power is actually not required, but it will be supplied because transmission lines are connected, they are energized, so they will be supplying reactive power. What will be the impact of this reactive power supply? What will happen? What is expected to happen?
স্যার একটু কোয়েশ্চেনটা আরেকবার বলবেন, আপনার ভয়েসটা কেটে কেটে যাচ্ছে।
আমি বলছি যে অ্যাকচুয়ালি কি হচ্ছে, when the load is high, demand is heavy during daytime and during the early night, demand is heavy, so there is demand for active power, and whenever there is demand for active power, there is demand for reactive power as well. In the load curve, we don't show that, we show only the active power demand. But in general, you can say that what is the power factor of the load connected to the system, you may say that is 0.8, 0.85. This is the average power factor. So you may calculate what is the reactive power demand. As soon as the active power demand is known, you will be knowing how much will be the reactive power. Even guess this may be the approximately the active power demand. Okay, now During heavy load condition, these transmission lines, they are always connected to the system, though they will be supplying reactive power to the system. So they will be helping the system in maintaining the system voltage. Okay, and any other reactive power required for maintaining the system voltage will then be supplied by the generators, will then be supplied by the other sources installed in the system. But during the low load condition, when the system demand is low, obviously active power demand is low means reactive power demand is also low. It will be proportionate. Okay. So if the reactive power demand is low, then also transmission lines are continuing their reactive power supply to the power system because they are connected. They will be supplying reactive power always. Now, what will be the impact of this reactive power supply by the conductors, by the transmission line to the system when there is not much demand of reactive power from the consumers? Is the question clear now? বুঝতে পেরেছো? রিঅ্যাক্টিভ পাওয়ারের ডিমান্ড নেই কেননা লোড ততটা নেই বলে ডিমান্ডও নেই, কিন্তু রিঅ্যাক্টিভ পাওয়ার সাপ্লাই হচ্ছে সিস্টেমে, তাহলে কি হবে? You need not arrange for the supply of this reactive power. It is happening automatically because when the line is charged, line is energized, transmission lines will continue to draw charging current. As a result, there will be generation of reactive power automatically. Okay. So now the question is, what will be the impact of this reactive power supply by the conductor, by the transmission line? কি হবে? Extra reactive power supply দিলে কি হয়? বলো। Loss. Okay. Have you heard of Ferranti effect? So-called
Yes,
Ferranti
sir.
effect. Have you
Yes,
studied?
yes.
Yes, sir.
What is that? What is Ferranti effect? Can you explain? Anybody?
Sir, at lightly loaded condition, receiving in voltage becomes higher than sending in voltage.
Why it is happening? Why that receiving end voltage is becoming greater than the sending end voltage? What is the reason for behind it?
Sir, because absorbing of reactive power by the inductor is less than compared to the producing of reactive power by the capacitance.
By the capacitance, yes. That means since the line capacitance is generating reactive power and the power demand on the system is low, then reactive power supply becomes greater than the reactive power consumption. As a result, voltage increases. So when you have studied the Ferranti effect, then you have considered a situation when a generator is connected at the sending end of the transmission line and at the receiving end at the the loads are connected. But in power system, this is not the situation always. Because the power system is an interconnected system, there will be generators connected at different power stations. So in that sense, you will not be finding an interconnected system or the interconnection is there, particularly at high voltage part of the network. You will not be able to identify which is part is the sending end, which part is the receiving end. Because the network is interconnected. Generators are connected everywhere at every power stations. So then what will happen?
আপনার ভয়েসটা ব্রেক করছে মাঝে মাঝে।
Okay. What is happening in interconnected system? High voltage conductors are interconnected. Okay. That sending and receiving end concept, that when the generator is connected at the sending end, loads are connected at the receiving end, this concept is true if you consider the system is radial in nature. Radial in nature মানেটা কি? মানে হচ্ছে সিস্টেমের একটা এন্ডে জেনারেটর রয়েছে, অন্য এন্ডে গিয়ে তোমার লোড রয়েছে। This is called the radial line. Okay, there is no interconnection as such. তার জন্য ওইভাবে আমরা বলেছি, কারণ ওইভাবে বললে সুবিধা হয়। কিন্তু যখন তুমি ইন্টারকানেক্টেড সিস্টেমের কথা ভাববে, ইন্টারকানেক্টেড পাওয়ার সিস্টেম, then what happens? Then the conductors are transmission lines are interconnected. Okay, from each bus there are several lines going out. those lines are again terminated at different buses, where at some other buses, some other lines are connected, and at those buses maybe there are power stations connected. So এরকম হতে পারে যে at the both ends of the transmission lines there are power stations. Okay, because this is true in case of interconnected power system. In case of interconnected system, there will be sending in at both the ends. Both the ends are connected to generators, so you can say that both the ends are sending end. So you cannot differentiate sending and receiving end in that sense. Okay, but then what will happen? Because of excessive supply of reactive power, there will be a tendency of the system voltage to rise. Okay, voltage at every buses will try to increase. Okay, you will be maintaining constant terminal voltage. এটা আমরা আগেও বলেছি যে একটা কি করা হয়, এটা বলেছি কি যে আমি ইনিশিয়াল ডিসকাশন এখানে বলেছি যে in every power system the general process of operating the generators is to maintain the constant terminal voltage. যদি জেনারেটরের এক্সাইটেশন সিস্টেম পারমিট করে, then we shall be trying to maintain constant terminal voltage. তাহলে সিস্টেম ভোল্টেজ যখন বেড়ে যাচ্ছে, জেনারেটর টার্মিনাল ভোল্টেজও বেড়ে যাবে. When the generator terminal voltage increases, generator must take some measures to maintain the terminal voltage constant. তাহলে কি করে করতে পারবে? তখন জেনারেটরকে রিঅ্যাক্টিভ পাওয়ার কনজিউম করতে হবে, কারণ জেনারেটর তখন হয়ে যাবে লোড. ইন রেসপেক্ট অফ রিঅ্যাক্টিভ পাওয়ার, generator will behave as a load. In respect of active power, it will be a generator obviously, but in respect of reactive power, generator will be now consuming reactive power. How? The excitation of the generator will be reduced. So if the excitation is reduced, then generated voltage will be reduced. If the generator voltage is reduced, then obviously system has a tendency to increase its voltage, so generator will be able to maintain constant voltage if it consumes reactive power from the system. Am I clear? বুঝতে পেরেছো? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that means during the low load period, particularly during the night time, okay, during the night, late night, obviously system demand decreases. Then there are tendency in the power systems to have increased busbar voltage. So during that time, generators may have to reduce their excitation, may have to consume reactive power from the system so that they can maintain system voltage within the permissible limit. So under-excited operation of the generator has to be done when the system demand is low. When the system demand is high, obviously the excitation will be high. That means the generators will be overexcited because they will be supplying reactive power. As much reactive power they can supply, they will be able to maintain the system voltage. তখন reactive power supply না করলে system voltage maintain করা যাবে না, কারণ where from the generators loads will get reactive power. They will be absorbing reactive power supplied by the transmission line. They will be absorbing reactive power supplied by the other capacitors and other reactive power sources. But even after that, the generators may have to supply reactive power. Under that condition, generator will be operating at overexcited condition. But during the low load period, when the system demand is less, then there will be excess reactive power supply from the transmission line. Excess reactive power supply bolchi keno, because transmission line will continue to supply the same reactive power. That reactive power will become excess since the system demand is low. তার ফলে reactive power supply টা বেশি হয়ে যাবে. Reactive power বেশি supply বেশি হলে we need some inductive load to be connected to the system. Who can be that inductive load? Generators now can become that inductive load. It will be supplying active power, no question about that, because it has to supply the active power. But in respect of reactive power, it has to consume it. সে কনজিউম করলে পরেই সিস্টেমের রিঅ্যাক্টিভ পাওয়ার সাপ্লাইটা কিছুটা অ্যাবজর্ব করতে পারবে, তাতে করে জেনারেটর উইল বি এবল টু মেইনটেইন দ্য সিস্টেম ভোল্টেজ. সো হেন্স generators are operated always to maintain constant terminal voltage. Now, constant terminal voltage যদি generator maintain করতে পারে তাহলে it will be easier for other buses also to maintain their voltage. তাহলে যেটা হয় in every bus system generators are always at constant terminal voltage. এরপরে তোমরা দেখবে যে এখানে তোমরা লোড ফ্লো স্টাডি করানো হবে তোমাদের, সেখানে দেখবে যে generators are represented as constant terminal voltage source. You know, they are operated in this manner. That's why they are called. You have to maintain constant terminal voltage. Okay. So since their generators should be maintaining constant terminal voltage during the low load condition, they will have to consume reactive power. They will be operated at under excited condition. Am I clear? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now let us come to the motor. Why we shall be discussing motor? Because our discussion for motor will be focused on its ability to supply and consume reactive power. কেন সেটা করছি? কারণ because we want to control the system voltage, and we have seen that a synchronous machine that is having a DC field supply is having the capacity to supply reactive power, at the same time capacity to consume reactive power. So obviously motor also will have this capacity. Kenon erokom capacity hobe? Because motor is also, synchronous motor is also following the same operating principle. Okay, here it is supplied by the DC field source. Okay, therefore synchronous motor also will be able to supply reactive power, will be able to consume reactive power when it is necessary. Let us see how the synchronous motor will behave when it is connected to power system. For that, we shall assume that again a motor is connected to infinite bus, means a motor is connected to the power system. So now if we draw the phasor diagram, obviously the same phasor diagram with little modification will be valid here, will be applicable here. If you see the phasor diagram drawn from the generator, it was the phasor diagram. You see, this was the phasor diagram. This was the phasor diagram. So we shall see only this part, EF, VT, and JIA, XS, and IA. This part we shall be drawing. But here you see that for a generator, this is the leading phasor, EF is the leading phasor, VT is the lagging phasor. Okay. Why EF is leading? Because generator is delivering power to the power system. EF leads VT. In case of motor, what happens? In case of motor, you see, in case of motor will be drawing power from the system. The motor terminal is connected to the system. That means VT will be supplying power inside the machine. And what is the voltage inside the machine? That is the induced voltage is EF. So VT now will lead EF. Is it clear why VT will lead EF? Because power, active power is flowing from the power system bus to the motor. Motor is drawing active power. Okay. Whatever is the load consumed by the motor, if there is some mechanical load there, that is the motor is driving mechanical load, then more power will be drawn. If the motor is running at no load, then also it will consume its losses from the power system. So direction of active power flow will be from the terminal voltage to the induced voltage in case of motor. So terminal voltage must lead the induced voltage in case of motor. That's why we have drawn the phasor diagram in this way. So VT is the terminal voltage or infinite bus voltage, power system voltage. EF is the induced voltage. Let us say that, assume that the excitation of the motor is now such that this is the induced EMF, this is the generated voltage. So if this is the generated voltage, then this will be this phasor J will be JIA-XS, drop in the armature reaction, and then drop in the reactance of the motor, that is the synchronous reactance. So if this is the direction of IA, what will be the direction of this is the direction of JIA-XS? What will be the direction of IA? IA will be like this, because JIA, it is leading IA by 90 degrees. Okay, JIA will lead IA by 90 degrees. So this will be the direction of JIA. This is the direction of IA, this one. Okay, this one. So you see that IA now is leading VT. That means the phasor diagram that we have drawn is due to some leading operation of synchronous motor. Why? Because IA is leading VT. Okay. Now let us see what is the condition of the excitation on the motor. We have seen that we have defined overexcitation or underexcitation depending upon the value of EF cosine delta. How much is EF cosine delta with respect to VT? Now here you see that EF cosine delta is exceeding VT. Okay, EF cosine delta is greater than VT. See, that means when EF cosine delta is greater than VT, we say that this is the condition of overexcitation. When it will be normal excitation, when EF cosine delta becomes equal to VT. That means had it this one be the value of, had this much been the value of EF, say here, then projection of EF on VT would have been like this. So if you draw a perpendicular from EF to VT, okay, then obviously this will be the value. That means for this much value of EF cosine delta will be equal to VT, and then it is the case of normal excitation. Since you see that if this is normal excitation, IA will be in this direction, that means operation will be unity. So like the generator, unity power factor operation is for normal excitation, and excitation more than that is or will be called overexcitation. Here for this particular drawing of the phasor diagram, okay, EF cosine delta is exceeding VT. As a result, we can say that this particular generator motor is overexcited. Okay, so since this is overexcited and VT is leading EF, VT is leading EF. Okay, so power flow will be actually EF VT by XS sine delta. This was the expression for power flow. This will be valid for this case also. EF VT by XS sine delta. Okay, so we have taken VT as reference. Now delta is lagging. It is a lagging angle. So EF VT by XS sine minus delta now. Okay, because with respect to VT, EF is lagging. So direction of power flow, it is now power is negative. Means now the motor will draw active power from the system. Motor will draw active power from the system. What happens to the reactive power? Reactive power is the same expression will be applicable. Reactive power, you see that this was the expression for reactive power. Q equal to VT by XS EF cosine delta minus VT. So EF cosine delta is greater than VT means Q becomes positive. P becomes negative because motor is drawing active power. Okay. In case of generator, P was positive. Generator was delivering reactive power. For overexcited generator, Q was positive. Generator was delivering reactive power. For overexcited motor also, Q becomes positive. That means motor is delivering reactive power to the system. Am I clear? So motor is now, say you see that this motor is delivering reactive power to the system, the power system. So power system is drawing reactive power. It is supplying active power to the motor. Motor is running and doing its work using that active power, but at the same time, because its excitation is above normal, it will be supplying reactive power to the system. Am I clear? বুঝতে পেরেছো?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If you reduce the reactive power, what will happen? If you reduce the reactive power, then you see that, say, this is the value of EF. For example, say this much is the value of EF. If reduced is means EF will be reduced. So this will be the direction of the drop. The IAXS will be this one. So this will be the direction of IA. So you see that in that case, IA is lagging VT. Motor is a load basically. So lagging current for a motor means obviously motor operation will be, now motor will be lagging power, operating a lagging power factor. Now when EF cosine delta is exceeding VT, motor is operating as at leading power factor. When EF cosine delta is less than VT, then motor will be operating at lagging power factor. Now we are particularly interested on the motor operation, synchronous motor operation, in this operating zone when the excitation is above normal. That means over-excited synchronous motor. This operation is, you can say that, of interest to us. Why this is of interest to us? Because we are concerned about the control of system voltage when the demand is heavy. That means when the demand is heavy, somebody should supply reactive power. Okay, when the demand is low, then reactive power need not be supplied. Okay, so what you can do, you can say that you can, by changing the field current of the motor, you can actually use it as a source of reactive power, and particularly this particular application of synchronous motor is of interest to power system, because synchronous motor in that case may be used as a source of reactive power. And when a motor is operated in this fashion, in this particular role, then it is operated at no load condition, because then the whole purpose of the installation of the motor becomes to control the reactive power, so it will not be driving any mechanical load. Okay, when a motor will be utilized to drive any mechanical load, its total job will be to cater that mechanical load only. Now here, the motor is installed to supply the reactive power, to control the voltage. That's why this particular operation of synchronous motor is called synchronous phase modifier or synchronous condenser, because motor now is behaving as a capacitor. Capacitors are also sometimes called condensers. Okay, so motor is behaving as a condenser, behaving as a capacitor. Since this is synchronous motor, that is called synchronous condenser. So synchronous motor operating at no load condition and overexcited condition, no load and overexcited condition, then that motor is called synchronous condenser, or sometimes also called the synchronous phase modifier. Okay, and you see that if we operate the motor in this way, then you said EF obviously will be like the voltage, because this is a motor. Overexcited motor will be delivering reactive power, and synchronous condenser. What is synchronous condenser? Overexcited synchronous motor running at no load is used for voltage control, particularly when reactive power supply is necessary. Then this is how the motor may be operated. Okay, is it clear? That means synchronous motor installed in the power system for the voltage control purpose, okay, will be operated at no load condition with excitation current more than the normal excitation. Okay, this particular operation of synchronous motor is called synchronous condenser or synchronous phase modifier. All right, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
And is the role of the synchronous motor clear to you? Okay, so if this is clear, now let us move to other type of generator. We have so far discussed non-salient pole or cylindrical rotor type synchronous machine, and we have discussed synchronous generator, cylindrical rotor type synchronous generator. Cylindrical rotor type synchronous generators are available at thermal power stations. That's why they are also called turbo generators sometimes. Okay, turbo generators means driven by steam turbine. Those generators are also called turbo generators. But there are other type of generators, salient pole generators. What are the salient pole generators? They are projected pole type. The poles are projected. You can see where the poles are. And what is the difference with the other type? Difference is that in case of projected pole or salient pole type machine, the air gap is not uniform throughout. Okay, there is rotor. Surrounding the rotor, there will be the stator, and in between there is a gap. That is the air gap. In case of cylindrical rotor machine, that gap is uniform everywhere. There is no, it is not that sometime at this location it is less, at this location this is more. But in case of salient pole machine, in case of salient pole rotor, what happens? The poles are projected poles. Means obviously, since the projected, what will happen? At the pole axis, that means when the those locations, so the poles are located, there actually air gap will be less. And at the other location, that means in between two poles, air gap will be more. All right. So at the locations, the positions of the pole, there will be less air gap. In between two poles, air gap will be more. Means these type of machines are non-uniform reluctance. If we talk about in terms of magnetic circuit, then obviously we shall be discussing reluctance. What is reluctance? It depends upon the air gap. Okay. What is reluctance? L by mu 0 mu r into A, that is reluctance. Okay. So you see that here in case of salient pole type synchronous machine, the reluctance will not be uniform. In case of cylindrical rotor type, since the air gap was same, reluctance also was same. In this case of salient pole type machines, in case of projected pole type machines or salient pole type machine, the air gap is non-uniform. That means there is less air gap along the axis, there will be more air gap along the quadrature axis. From the axis, pole axis, we call it quadrature axis. And salient pole machines, it has been found that salient pole machines can be analyzed, can be represented by using two reactances. In case of cylindrical rotor machine, we represent the machine, we represent the generator or motor by using a single reactance. What is that reactance? XS, synchronous reactance. That means armature reaction reactance and reactance. In case of salient pole machine, that is not possible. Why? Because the reluctances are not equal. So you cannot represent this type of machine by a single reactance. By a single inductance, you cannot represent. That's why a single reactance representation is not possible here. Because you see that since the air gaps are different, reluctances also will be different. So fluxes also will be different. If you measure the flux along the pole axis and measure the flux along the quadrature axis, okay, obviously they will be different because of difference in reluctances. So if the flux is different, what will be flux linkage by current? That is inductance. Flux linkage by current is inductance. Flux linkage by current also will be different. As a result, there will be difference in inductance at the two positions. There will be difference in reactance at the two positions. So salient pole machines are generally represented by using, they call it two reaction theory. That means there will be two armature reaction. That's why two reaction theory. Armature reaction will be represented along the pole axis. Armature reaction. Why they call it two reaction theory. That means what we shall be doing here, we shall be representing the salient pole type generator or salient pole type motor, whatever may be, by two reactances, one along the axis, direct axis, along the pole axis, another along the quadrature axis. Is it clear why two reactances are used? Because one reactance is not sufficient, or you cannot represent the machine, you cannot analyze the machine by using only one reactance because of the difference in air gap. Okay, so now let us, with this information, let us now draw the phasor diagram of the salient pole type generators. We shall be keeping in mind that these generators will be represented by two reactances, one along the axis of the pole, that is called the direct axis, or we call it D axis. Okay, and accordingly, the reactance representing the generator along the pole axis will be direct axis reactance, or we call the direct axis synchronous reactance XD, and another along the quadrature axis, that is the quadrature axis synchronous reactance XQ. So one reactance is XD measured along the direct axis, another reactance is XQ measured along the quadrature axis. Okay, for this purpose, now say this is the direct axis, pole axis of the motor, pole axis of the generator drawn here. So this is D axis. That means field flux will be along this d-axis. Okay, field winding will be here, and if field current flows, obviously direction of flux will be this one. So this represents the direction of the field flux. 90 degree lagging with the field flux will be the induced voltage, and that will be along the quadrature axis. Say the induced EMF measured along the quadrature axis is E. So E represents the induced EMF of the machine. Obviously, since this is a generator, EF will lead the V terminal voltage. Let us draw this V as the terminal voltage. Arbitrarily we are drawing because we shall have to draw the complete the phasor diagram. Okay, we are not measuring it. We will be representative values. We shall be just schematically we shall be showing where is V, where is E, like that. So say this is the terminal voltage vector. This is the induced EMF vector, and say our operation of the generator is inductive. That is, load is inductive. Let us assume. So say this is the direction of the current. Load is inductive means current to lag the terminal voltage by some angle. Say this is lagging by this angle phi. Okay, and angle between E, induced EMF, and terminal voltage, say that is equal to delta. Let us say that beta is the angle between induced EMF and this current I. Okay, so beta is the current angle between induced EMF and the current. That means quadrature axis and current angle between is beta. Delta is the angle between E and V. Okay, and phi is the angle between terminal voltage and current. Since we are representing the motor using two reactances, one along direct axis, one along quadrature axis, we shall be actually dividing the current also into two components, one along direct axis, another along quadrature axis. So this is current I. Its quadrature axis component is I cosine beta. It is equal to IQ, quadrature axis component of armature current, and this is I sine delta. That means I sine delta is this vector. Okay, direct axis component. This is shown here. So ID is I sine beta, and IQ is I cosine beta. Okay, then let us now draw these expressions. This E is equal to, we can write it is B. These are all phasors. E is phasor, V is also phasor. So E equal to V plus J IDXD plus J IQXQ. So V plus J IDXD plus J IQXQ is E. This is what we can write. Now, if you consider the magnitude only, how much is the magnitude of E? This magnitude, and you say that minus this magnitude, IDXD. What is that? This is equal to this VQ. We have shown that this quadrature axis component of B is VQ. So what is VQ? VQ is B cosine delta. Okay, B cosine delta. So that means B cosine delta is equal to this E minus this length, means ID into XD. So here these are the phasors. Here these are not the phasor. These are the magnitude only. E minus ID XD, okay, equal to B cosine delta. So from here I can find out the magnitude of ID. What is that? ID equal to E minus B cosine delta by XD. So this is how I can find the value of ID equal to E minus B cosine delta by XD. We are finding it because it will be required afterwards while we shall be deriving the expression for active and reactive power. Now similarly, let us see how much is B sine delta. B sine delta, this is this length, B sine delta is this length, and this length is equal to, say, it is IQ if we consider only the length. This is the length. J represents its direction with respect to I. Okay, the direction with respect to IQ. So IQ XQ, this becomes equal to B. It is B sine delta. Okay, so IQ is equal to B sine delta. And what is IQ then? IQ equal to B sine delta by XQ. Okay, so these relations for ID and IQ we can find out. Now, what is I cosine beta? I cosine beta is equal to, say, it is IQ. What is I sine delta? This length is I sine delta, means ID, and ID equal to I sine beta. And what is power factor phi? Phi is equal to this beta total angle minus delta. beta minus delta. Then we shall be now deriving the expression for active power. So let us find what is cos phi, because Vi cosine phi is the active power. So cos phi equal to cosine of B minus, not it is not phi, it will be delta, B minus delta, sorry, beta minus delta. So cosine phi equal to cosine of beta minus delta means cosine beta cosine delta plus sine beta sine delta. Okay. Similarly, what is sine phi? Sine phi will be required when we derive the expression for reactive power. So sine phi is sine of beta minus delta, means sine of beta cosine beta minus cosine beta sine delta. So sine beta cosine delta minus cosine beta sine delta. Okay. These are the expression for sine phi and cosine phi. And now you find what is I cos phi. It is cos phi is there. Find out I cos phi. Okay. In terms of ID IQ, you can write what is I cosine phi. I cosine phi finally becomes IQ cosine delta plus ID sine delta. I sine phi becomes ID cosine delta minus IQ sine delta. And find Vi cosine phi. What is the active power? Vi cosine phi is the active power. How much is that? B into I cosine phi. I cosine phi is IQ cosine delta plus ID sine delta. ID sine delta means B into, put the value of ID and IQ and ID. This is IQ and this is ID. Put the value here. And by putting the value, you see that here you have B into B sine delta by XQ into cosine delta plus E minus B cosine delta by XD into sine delta. So rearrange it and you will be obtaining B into E by XD sine delta plus B square. Here you are having B square. Here also you are having B square. So B square, let us write by 2 equal to 1 upon XQ minus 1 upon XD, and you are having sine of 2 delta, because sine delta cosine delta here, cosine delta sine delta here. So if we write 2 sine delta cosine delta, it is nothing but sine 2 delta. That's why B square has been divided by 2, so that we can multiply here by 2, and we can write 2 cosine delta sine delta as sine 2 delta. So Bi cosine phi is the active power P delivered by the salient pole generator. And how much is that? It is EV by XD sine delta plus B square by 2, 1 upon XQ minus 1 upon XD sine delta. Okay, this is the expression for the active power. Is it clear? Could you understand this? Bolo. Any confusion here? Anybody having any confusion?
No, sir.
Now, how similar is this expression with respect to the expression for active power for cylindrical rotor machine? What is the similarity and where is the dissimilarity? Because our intention is not to simply draw the phasor diagram, because we want to see how much the explanation or how much the, or you can say, behavior of cylindrical rotor machine can be actually said to be the behavior of salient pole machine also. Or can you extend the same analysis as we have done for cylindrical rotor machine to explain the performance of, explain the operation of salient pole machine also? That we want to see. So let us now see how much is the similarity, how much is the dissimilarity. Which part is similar?
EVXD
EV by XD sine delta. Okay, there it was XS, synchronous.
Yes.
Here it is XD. What is XD? It is also the synchronous reactance, but measured along the direct axis. That synchronous reactance for cylindrical rotor machine, it was uniform, same everywhere. But here, the synchronous reactance is not same, because armature reaction differs. Armature reaction along the pole axis and along the quadrature axis, they are different. That's why reactances are also different. You see that if we put XD equal to XQ, say just for test purpose, if you put xd equal to xq, you see that this part vanishes. Okay, if xq becomes equal to xg, then this part becomes 0, means it becomes the same expression as the expression for cylindrical rotor machine. That means this difference in the expression of active power is obviously due to the difference in the reactances or difference in the reluctances of the machine at the direct axis and at the quadrature axis. And that is the main source of difference. Okay, but this part is almost same. So you see that in this part there is no E. It is solely dependent upon the terminal voltage. There is no here. That means this part does not depend upon excitation, that does not depend upon field current. But this part depends. If you see the magnitude of this part, that means peak value EV by XG and V square by 2, 1 upon XQ minus 1 upon XG, compare the magnitude of this part and this part, you'll see that this part may be 15 to 20% of the total, and this part is remaining. That means the 80% or more will be this part, and 15, 16, maybe at most 20% will be from this part. And there is one sine 2 delta component. There is one sine delta component. This sine delta component is exactly the same as the cylindrical rotor machine, but here this is somewhat different. How it is different? You see that with 1/2 cycle of sine delta component, there are full cycle of the sine 2 delta component. Okay, there are full cycle of the sine 2 delta component. So I have not drawn the complete power angle curve. This obviously the power angle curve. Okay, the variation of active power with delta, we call it power angle curve in case of cylindrical rotor machine. Here also we have finally derived the expression for active power, and here you see that in terms of delta we can express it. The nature of expression is almost same. Here it depends upon the field current and terminal voltage and reactance and delta. Here also it is same thing. Only difference is that here it is the difference of reactances or difference in reluctance, and there is a sine delta component as well as there is a sine 2 delta component. This sine 2 delta component, this is due to the difference in the reluctances. That's why this part is also called the reluctance power. That means the source of this power is the difference in reluctance at the two axes of the generator. At the two axes of the pole rather. Okay, so this is due to the difference in reluctance. That's why this is called the reluctance power. Okay, and this is the normal part of the power that we have found out previously also. Okay, so here also you see that you can change the active power output of the generator obviously by varying delta. As before, the same logic that we have discussed in case of cylindrical rotor machine, why delta has to be varied for varying the active power. Here also the same logic is valid, because here also you will be varying delta to change the active power. But here something more will happen. What will happen? Whenever you are trying to vary delta, this component will vary. At the same time, this component also will vary. This is sine 2 delta. But how this will vary? If you draw the power angle curve, this part will have a power angle curve same as the previous. Similarly, it was sine curve like this. Okay, a sine curve. Now this part, it will complete its full cycle within this 90 degree of the first part. Okay, delta within 90 degree of delta, the second part will complete the full cycle. So now can you tell me what will happen to the active power, happen to the power angle curve of this machine? We have neglected resistance here also. We have neglected resistance in case of cylindrical rotor machine also. In case of cylindrical rotor machine, the peak of the power angle curve occurred at delta equal to 90 degrees. Where the peak of the power angle curve of the salient pool machine will be happening? Where the peak of the power angle curve will be occurring for salient pool machine? Is it at 90 degree, less than 90 degree, or greater than 90 degree?
Sir, in case of less 90 degrees, sir, in the between the two peak, it will be somewhat deformed due to the sine to delta.
That means if you draw the resultant, that means one curve is for sine delta, another is for sine 2 delta. Peak of the sine 2 delta curve is at most 20% of the total. It is around 80%. Say it is 15, 16 to 20% at most. So where will be the peak of the resultant curve? Peak of the resultant.
Starting, sir, at starting 0. Sir, resultant curve will be peaky at starting, I think.
At starting, man. That means it is not at the starting. It will be peaky before 90 degree. Before
Yes.
the occurrence of 90 degree, peak will be available.
Yes.
I know. That means 90 degree. That means peak of the power angle curve will occur somewhat ahead of 90 degree. Right? So somewhat at an angle which is less than 90 degree. Okay. And after that is crossed, the power angle curve magnitude will be decreasing. Why it will be decreasing? It will be moving towards the negative half cycle. Sine 2 delta component will be moving to the negative half cycle. That means you can see that zone of stable operation of this machine again will be from 0 to an angle which is less than 90 degree. Is not it? বুঝতে পেরেছো 90 ডিগ্রি একটু কম হবে কেন 90 ডিগ্রি কম হবে বিকজ অফ দ্য সেকেন্ড পার্ট sin 2 ডেল্টা কম্পোনেন্ট কেননা কি হবে এর 45 ডিগ্রির কাছাকাছি এই মেশিনের 45 ডিগ্রির কাছাকাছি এর পিকটা হয়ে যাবে তাহলে এর 50 ডিগ্রি হয়ে যাবে মানে কি এটা এর পিকটা আবার বাড়ছে তাহলে আলটিমেটলি এটা শিফটেড হবে টুয়ার্ডস লেফট শিফট হয়ে গিয়ে 90 এর একটু আগে গিয়ে এর পিকটা হবে তারপর পিক হওয়ার পরে কিন্তু ম্যাগনিটিউডটা অনেকটাই কমে যাবে তাহলে এই পাওয়ার অ্যাঙ্গেল কার্ভের পিক ভ্যালুটা পাচ্ছি বিলো 90 ডিগ্রি দেন হোয়াট উইল বি দ্য স্টেবল অপারেটিং জোন using the same logic as the cylindrical rotor machine what will be the stable operating zone from 0 to delta value where it is peak that means from 0 to a value which is less than 90 degree তার মানে the zone of stable operation is reduced in case of salient pole type machine am I clear আমি salient pole machine এর বেলায় কিন্তু stable operation zone একটু কমে যাবে এটা 90 অবধি থাকছে একটু কম হচ্ছে am I clear the zone of stable operation will be somewhat reduced it will be somewhat narrower compared to the cylindrical rotor machine which was up to 90 degree now for this machine or salient pole machine that zone is somewhat reduced it is somewhat narrower compared to the cylindrical rotor machine is it clear or not
Yes, sir.
okay and unstable operating zone it is more okay somewhat less than 90 degree to 180 degree it is the unstable operation zone so what is the difference all other things more or less same but only difference is that the zone of stable operation is somewhat reduced in case of salient pole type machine okay and unstable operation zone is somewhat extended তাহলে আমার অপারেটিং জোনটা একটু ন্যারো হচ্ছে আনস্টেবল জোনটা একটু ওয়াইডার হচ্ছে this is one difference what is the other difference is that what will be the value of you can say what is the stabilizing power have you synchronizing power coefficient do you know have you heard of synchronizing power coefficient in case of synchronous machine what is that P is for cylindrical rotor machine EV by X sin delta okay EV by X is sin delta so if we find out dPd delta what is that EV by X cosine delta and what is cosine delta EV by X cosine delta is called it is called the synchronizing power coefficient or it is called the stiffness of the machine synchronizing power coefficient এটাকে বলছে কেন stiffness এটাকে বলছে কেন because it is reflecting how much the active power will vary if delta is varied বুঝতে পেরেছো am I clear dPd delta if you find for synchronous machine say for cylindrical rotor machine part EV by X is sin delta it is the active power expression what is dPd delta it is EV by X is cosine delta what this implies EV by X cosine delta means dPd delta. What is the implication of dPd delta? Implication is how the active power will vary for a small variation in delta. That is reflected by this value EB by X cosine delta. That's why it is called the synchronizing power coefficient, or it is also sometimes called the stiffness of the machine. Now, if you find that dPd delta for salient pole machine, then you see that it is somewhat higher. In case of salient pole machine, it is somewhat higher than the cylindrical rotor machine. Higher because of the presence of this sin 2 delta component, because of the presence of this reluctance power component. Right? Since dPd delta is higher, what you can actually understand from this value of dPd delta for salient pole type machine, what does it reflect in respect of performance of the salient pole type machine? Indicate that dPd delta is having somewhat higher value. Higher value because of the presence of this sin 2 delta component. Higher value আমি কার respect এ বলছি? If I have a cylindrical rotor machine and I have one salient pole type machine having the same capacity rate, then for cylindrical rotor machine I shall have dPd delta value which will be given by EB by XD sin delta. I shall have dPd delta value for salient pole type machine which will have the value EB by XD cosine delta plus this b square by 2 1 upon x cube minus 1 upon xd cosine of 2 delta. This value you will have, means dPd delta or synchronizing power coefficient or stiffness value for salient pole machine will be somewhat higher than the cylindrical rotor type machine. Am I clear?
Yes.
What does it imply? What will happen? Can you guess something regarding the stability or compare something regarding the stability of these two machines, cylindrical rotor type and salient pole type? যেহেতু stiffness-টা বেশি, in case of salient pole type machine, you can say that if I change delta by a small angle, then in case of salient pole type machine, change in P will be more compared to the change in P in case of cylindrical rotor type machine. তার মানে কি হচ্ছে, আমাকে ডেল্টাটা কম চেঞ্জ করলেই আমি বেশি পাওয়ার পাঠাতে পারছি, or somehow if there is a change in the active power input to the generator, the salient pole generator and to the cylindrical pole generator, where the delta variation will be more, obviously delta variation will be more in case of cylindrical rotor machine. তার মানে কি, stiffness of salient pole type machine is somewhat higher than the stiffness of cylindrical rotor type machine. Means we can say that salient pole type machines are having greater inherent stability than the cylindrical rotor type machine. Inherent stability greater কেন বলছি? Because by changing a small value of delta, you will have a greater variation in P, or for a greater variation in P, there will be small variation in delta. কম চেঞ্জ করতে হবে, অর্থাৎ মেশিনটাকে as if নাড়ানো যাচ্ছে না, মেশিন very strongly coupled with the bus bar, এমন strongly coupled যে তুমি এটাকে চেঞ্জ করতে পারছো না. That means stability of this machine is higher. Okay, that is what we can say. So we can say that active power control will be same for cylindrical rotor machine and salient pole machine, but the zone of stable operation is somewhat less in case of salient pole machine. But salient pole machines are inherently more stable than cylindrical rotor type machine because of the presence of reluctance power component, because dPd delta value for salient pole type machine is more than the dPd delta value for cylindrical rotor type machine. So is it clear? Is the things clear to you or not? Bolo.
Yes, sir.
Now let us see how we can change the reactive power. Reactive power, how we can measure? Vi sin phi is the reactive power. So I sin phi, you put the value of I sin phi, it will be Id cosine delta minus Iq sin delta. So put the value, it will be V into E minus V cosine delta by XD cosine delta minus V sine delta by XQ sine delta. Rearrange. Ultimately, you will get this expression EV by XD cosine delta minus V square cos square delta by XD plus sine square delta by XQ. So you see that it is almost the same expression except the presence of XD and XQ. Had XD and XQ been same, then this part would have been V square by XD only. XD and XQ, if they were equal, then cosine square delta plus sine square delta would have been equal to 1. We would have written EV by XD cos square delta minus V square by XD. That means the same expression. If you take V by XD outside, then E cosine delta minus VT would have been the expression for reactive power. That means you see that reactive power control also is exactly the same. That means active power control and reactive power control. That means the operation of salient pole machine may be explained in the same way, and salient pole machine also may be controlled in the same way as we have discussed in case of cylindrical rotor machine. There is a little difference in the expression, so there is a little difference in the values. As a result of delta variation, how much will be the control in active power? As a result of field current variation, how much will be the control of voltage? There will be some variation in magnitude because of the presence of this reactance difference or reluctance difference. Okay, as already I have mentioned, this part, because we are mainly discussing this part is 15 to 20% of the total, and this part is 80% almost. But the salient pole machines, as we have discussed, are having more inherent stability, because for smaller variation in delta, you will have larger variation in active power. So these machines are more stiff, more strongly coupled with the bus, as if, okay, you can as if you will have to pay more force, more effort to disconnect the machine from the bus, as if. That means these machines are having higher stability compared to the cylindrical rotor machine. But what is the negative side? Negative side is that these machines are having less stable operating zone. It has to be controlled within an angle, maybe 80, 85 like that. Okay, by 85 degree maybe, where the peak of the power angle curve will be occurring. It will depend obviously upon the value of reluctance power. It will be around 85 or so. 80 to 85 degree will be the peak of the power angle curve. Okay, so this is regarding the operation of the salient pole machine. So we shall stop here today, because now we have to discuss some problems. This problem discussion will take some time, so it will not be covered within this around 7-8 minutes left. That will not be covered. So we shall discuss this thing, remaining things, in our next class, and then we shall proceed to the next topic. Now, up to this, if you are having any question, if you are having any doubt, you can ask me. বলো, কোনো question আছে, কোনো doubt আছে? Anybody having any doubt?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Then, if there is no doubt, let us conclude here today. I shall be calling your names. Okay. Abhishek Mojumdar.
Present, sir.
Aditya Rai.
Present, sir.
Then Oishani Chatterjee.
Present, sir.
Ali Hamzan.
Present, sir.
Ankit Joyshwal.
Present, sir.
Then Orijit Pal.
Yes, sir.
Arnab Pal.
Yes, sir.
Bikash Kumar Barnwal.
Yes, sir.
Then Dipankar Singh.
Present, sir.
Dipten Mardi.
Present, sir.
Konishk Boshak.
Present, sir.
Kaushik Maji.
Present, sir.
Manosh Patro.
Present, sir.
Muzadi Dalam.
Present, sir.
Pratik Mishra.
Yes, sir.
Shandip De.
Yes, sir.
Shankha Mitra,
Yes, sir.
Shreyas Khatri,
Yes, sir.
then Sheikh Arman Hussain,
Present, sir.
Sheikh Muhammad Soel,
Yes, sir.
then Shoham Chatterjee,
Present, sir.
Somnath Pal,
Yes, sir. Somnath
Udip
Pal.
Sen,
Yes, sir.
Udip Sen,
Yes, sir.
Shaugato Debnath,
Yes, sir.
then Saurabh Burman,
Yes, sir.
Shubhadeep Bera,
Yes,
Shubhadeep
sir.
Bera.
Yes, sir.
Then Subrato Mahata,
Yes, sir.
Sukesh Murmu,
Yes, sir.
Supratim Nashkar,
Yes, sir.
Swapnil Kisku,
Yes, sir.
then Trina Vishwas,
Yes, sir.
Ujjal Haldar.
Yes, sir.
Okay, there were some other people I have seen, but now they are not visible. I don't know. Maybe they are disconnected somehow. Okay. So, is there anybody left whom I did not call?
Sir, Devargo Das you did not call.
Devarga Das. Acha, Devarga Das. Anybody else? There are some more names. Initially, I have seen them, but what happened when I started recording? Then it was not. It could not start, and it said that somebody will be disconnected. So there are some problems in the software, perhaps in the Google Meet software, that may be creating some problems. So that some people are not connected, or they are maybe denied access. Okay. All right, thank you. So we shall be meeting again next Tuesday. And today, because I have a meeting in the second half, that's why I have requested you to arrange the class in the first half. As such, I have no problem in arranging classes in the first half. Perhaps you are having some problem. So in that case, other classes during in Fridays will be in the second half as you want. Okay. So thank you.